Hey everyone, Sam here from Sugar Spun Run, and today I'll be showing you how to make sour cream donuts. These old-fashioned donuts are a classic. They are so tender and cakey, and today I will be walking you through the easy steps to make them. We will be frying them and covering them in a simple vanilla glaze. The first thing you'll need to get started is 3 tablespoons of softened unsalted butter, and we'll add a 1/4 cup of sugar and a 1/4 cup of tightly packed light brown sugar. We'll use an electric mixer now to beat these together until they're creamy and well combined. Now we'll add 2 large egg yolks, and we'll use our electric mixer to stir everything together again until it's really well incorporated. I start on a lower speed and then increase my mixer speed to high and stir really well for about 30 seconds to a minute. The reason we're using egg yolks and not any egg whites in this recipe is because those yolks are going to help make our donuts nice and tender, while the whites would make them a little drier, though it would give them more of a rise. So I just use yolks for this recipe. Now we will add our sour cream. This recipe uses 2/3 cup of sour cream. Add that to our batter. And we'll also add a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract for flavor. Beat everything together again until well combined. All right, with our wet ingredients prepped, now we will prepare our dry ingredients. We'll start with 2 cups plus 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. We'll add a tablespoon of cornstarch, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and I'm also going to add just a pinch or about an 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg. This is going to help give those donuts a really nice flavor. We'll whisk together our dry ingredients. Now that we have our dry ingredients combined, we're going to add these to our wet ingredients. Now, when stirring these together, I do not recommend using your electric mixer at this point. You don't want to overwork the dough or your donuts could end up being a little too tough. So I like to use my spatula and just fold the ingredients together until just combined. Once our ingredients are combined, we'll cover this bowl with plastic wrap and we'll let it chill in the refrigerator for at least an hour. Once our donut dough has chilled for at least an hour, now we are going to turn it out onto a clean, lightly floured surface. I like to lightly flour the dough and use my hands to work it together and flatten it slightly. Now we'll use a rolling pin to roll this dough out to no thinner than 1/2 inch thick. Now you'll need some donut cutters. I don't have any professional donut cutters, I just have these round cookie cutters that will make the shape of a donut when I put them together, so I'm going to use these to cut out donuts from my dough. I always recommend dusting the bottom of your cookie or donut cutters with flour. This will make it so the dough doesn't stick to the cutter. Once you've cut out your donuts, you're going to want to place them on a wax paper lined surface. I like to use a cookie sheet or a cutting board that I can easily move because we're going to need to return these to the refrigerator. And while this recipe is for sour cream donuts, I do keep the donut holes and I fry them as well. I love a good sour cream donut hole. Once you've cut as many donuts and donut holes as possible out of your dough, I recommend regrouping the scraps and then rolling that again out to no thinner than a 1/2 inch thickness to get as many donuts as possible out of this dough. You should be able to get about 7 or 8 donuts and about 8 to 10 donut holes out of this recipe. Okay, now that we've cut out our donuts, we are going to return them to the fridge and chill them while we do a couple other things. We are going to be heating up our oil and we are going to be making a glaze that we'll use after we've dipped our donuts. I do recommend waiting until now to begin heating up our oil because it's going to take a couple minutes, but that's going to give our donuts in the fridge a little time to harden up a bit, to firm up a bit, and it'll make them easier to dip without misshaping them. So let those chill in the fridge and let's head over to the stovetop and prepare our oil for frying. I use a Dutch oven for frying these sour cream donuts, and we are going to fill this Dutch oven with about 2 to 3 inches of canola oil. As you can see, I've also fitted this Dutch oven with a candy thermometer. You will need a thermometer that you can fix to the side of your pot so that you can tell what temperature your oil is. Make sure it's not touching the bottom of the pot and that it's about halfway in the oil. The temperature we're looking for is 350 to 360 degrees Fahrenheit. You don't want your temperature to be any lower or your donuts will come out greasy, they'll take too long to cook. And if your temperature is any higher, the outsides will cook and crisp up and even burn and the inside will be raw and gooey. You don't want that. 350 degrees Fahrenheit to 360 degrees Fahrenheit is the sweet spot, and that's what we're looking for. Keep an eye on the temperature the whole time you're baking your donuts. The temperature will dip when you first add your donuts, but you want it to be back in this sweet spot before adding your next batch. Now, if you don't have canola oil, you could use vegetable oil or even peanut oil instead. I don't recommend using something like olive oil. I would stay with canola or vegetable or peanut oil. While our oil is heating up, we can prepare our glaze. This glaze is super simple to make. You'll need 4 tablespoons of melted butter, and we'll add 1.5 cups of powdered sugar to that. Then we'll add a half teaspoon of vanilla extract for flavor, and 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of hot water. You want to use hot water because you're adding it to hot butter. You want everything to combine nicely, so don't use cold water or it could cause things to curdle and you're not going to get a nice smooth glaze. Now I'm just going to stir everything together until this glaze is nice and smooth. Once our glaze is prepped, we can set this aside and let it sit while we're waiting for our oil to heat up and while we're frying our sour cream donuts. Now, if your glaze starts to harden while it is sitting, you can pop this back in the microwave for 5 to 10 second increments and stir it well, and it should be nice and smooth and perfectly dippable again. So with our glaze prepared, let's head back over to our stovetop and check on our oil. Now that our oil has reached temperature, we can finally fry our donuts. There are a few things you'll want to have on hand before we start frying though. I recommend taking a large plate and lining it with paper towels. This is going to give you an absorbent surface to place your freshly fried donuts. And I recommend grabbing a pair of tongs. This is going to allow us to gently place the donuts into the oil without splashing anywhere, and it'll make pulling them out of the hot oil a lot easier. Now we'll use these tongs to gently lower our donuts and donut holes into our hot oil. Now I do recommend only frying about 3 donuts or 4 donut holes at a time. The reason for this is that once we add our cold donuts to the oil, it's going to cause the temperature to drop. So you'll only want to put in about 3 donuts at a time. The temperature will drop as they fry. We'll pull them out of the oil and let them cool, and we will wait for our oil to come back to that 350 to 360 degree Fahrenheit range before adding any more donuts to it. Now, the amount of time that it takes to cook your donuts will vary depending on the exact temperature of the oil in your Dutch oven. What I found that works for me is cooking these donuts about 1 minute and 15 seconds on each side gets them pretty well done. Also, if they're still slightly underbaked when you pull them out of the oil, they will continue to cook a little bit longer as they cool. What I really recommend is doing a test batch and then cutting into the donuts after a couple minutes to see how they look inside and taking it from there to decide if you need less time or more time when frying your donuts. Donut holes need a little bit less time. I like to cook them for about 45 seconds to a minute and flip them over, cook them for another 45 seconds to a minute, and then drain them and let them cool. Once our donuts are fried, I do like to let them cool for about 3 minutes before dunking them in our glaze. Then I'll transfer them to the glaze, I'll turn them over so they get a nice full glaze coating, and then I'll transfer them to a wire cooling rack where I will let them cool for a few more minutes. The glaze should set up really fast and you'll still be able to enjoy warm glazed donuts. And that is how you make sour cream donuts at home completely from scratch. I really hope you guys enjoyed this recipe and how easy it is to make, and I really hope you'll try it out for yourself and let me know what you think. If you do, please leave me a comment. I always enjoy hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.